to just establish a few things, knowing that this is not necessarily an arts and culture crowd. Specifically, you have much more broad interests in development, architecture, land banking, all the things. And so this will be a chance for you to just hear kind of how rich we are, so to speak, in Muncie and Delaware County, and then considering the sort of qualitative aspect, and then Ty will be taking it away with the quantitative aspect. So to start off, I'm going to ask you to just think about your favorite local arts and culture organization, creative place, or artist, creative, or maker. And we're not going to go into a lot of definitions, but I am going to set the stage with those. So first off, Muncie Arts and Culture Council, or Muncie Arts for short, we champion arts and culture experiences, public art, and a thriving community of artists and allies. So we stay very focused. We know that's our lane. We don't want to be doing things that overlap with other organizations, but we support many things that other organizations and individuals are doing. So I'm going to go into the tiny bit of data that I have, and this features Delaware County. And since I'm the Delaware County Bicentennial Co-Chair, and recently learned there are 12 townships, I just popped this graphic up to pause for a moment, because how many of us in the room knew there are 12 townships in Delaware County?
Me.
A very small handful, okay? And that's important because the Delaware County Bicentennial is in 2027, and we want to include everybody. So here's a stat, a very basic stat, but if you've heard me talk in other rooms, you've probably heard me toss that around, and it's a very important one about how we score in the Arts Vibrancy Index that Southern Methodist University does every year in reporting to communities, organizations nationwide. So to put that in context, Delaware County is doing better than 84% of other counties nationwide. I see my job as trying to boost this score every year. Now, before this talk, I did contact Southern Methodist University. I said, do you have the 2025 data? And they said, we do, but we haven't calculated it in the same way. So I cannot actually say, have we gone up, have we gone down? But here's what they shared with me. And I think this is important to look at as well. And I shared it also with Ty so that we could try and figure this out together. Here are a few more specifics about that 2024 number. Notice that it's really centered around how many dollars are spent in Delaware County, how many arts providers we have, and the public support that we also have in Delaware County. And that's compared with the other data points below. So all that to say, we are doing great on the one hand, and for comparison, to compare Muncie with in Delaware County with Madison County, where Anderson is, they are in their 70s. Marion County, where Indianapolis is in the 90s. Here's what they gave me this year. Nothing like a percentage score, but instead, so I'm not a data person, I'm not a statistician. I'm hoping to make more sense of this. I've just received the information, but there's a lot to unpack here. And because of that, I started a conversation with the Center for Business and Economic Research at Ball State to do an arts and culture study of what we are accomplishing and how significant we are, especially for economic development in our communities. So one of the things that I did when I first started at Muncie Arts a year ago on February 10th is I had a conversation with the board about what is it that we are trying to do through arts and culture, and we use the Sustainable Development Goals, which if others of you haven't heard of, I encourage you to think about how your work is part of that broader picture. And so what we landed on, the board and I, is economic growth, sustainable communities, and health and wellness. So when people say, what is it all for? That's the broader picture. And it has helped us build partnerships that we didn't expect when we started talking in this way beyond our mission. So So this is just a little picture of the programs that we do now. And we are getting ready to have focus groups next week in person and the following week online, which I hope all of you will be able to attend. I put flyers over here on the tables. Please pick one up when you have a chance. So I talk a lot about the arts and culture ecosystem and all that is a part of it. I think the main point about this definition, it is much more expansive and inclusive than a lot of people would think. It's not just nonprofits, it is culture in the broadest sense of the word. The Muncie Sports Commission and I, John Anderson specifically, we have conversations about what he's trying to do for our community through sports and what I'm trying to do for our community through arts and culture. That's the kind of different conversation or different partner that Muncie Arts has historically had, which is really important. So, who here considers themselves an artist? A handful of you, this is great. Okay, so artists are usually known for creating something different beyond what are the sum of the parts, and that's in a nutshell. These are more technical definitions from the American Society for the Arts and from other organizations. Who here regards themselves as a creative? This is even probably a bigger group. I do, for instance. I'm not an artist, but I'm an arts administrator. And I think that that's important that we start to think again more broadly who we include. And how about makers? Who are the makers in the room? And you might be more than one of these categories. Makers? We're at Mad Jacks. Come on, everybody. Good. And these are just a few different definitions. There are ways to kind of slice and dice this in different ways too. But when I talk about individuals who are part of our arts and culture community, that's what I'm talking about. The artists, the creatives, and the makers. What about the creative sector? This too is interesting, and I think Ty will unpack this a little bit too. So when he and I first met, and we're at a creative economy summit together, there was a lot of discussion about the folks that are in this sector that people may not recognize, the software developers, the architects, the folks that are creative and contributing to the creative sector or the arts and culture sector, but are not necessarily folks that would label themselves artists, but might also be creatives or makers, if they only knew what the definitions were. So this is why this is important right now. And then how about cultural assets? Cultural assets too is so broad, so significant, but essentially those cultural assets are what define us as a community, what give us a sense of identity, what give us a sense of place, often what collectively contribute to quality of life, which is a little squishy and why the data is so important. So, as I've been talking to different groups, I've been asking them to help me expand on these lists. And it was easy to start to list all the museums and galleries, but it wasn't necessarily easy to start including all the places where you can see art displayed. And if you look at that list, you'll see that this again includes the nonprofit sector and the for-profit sector. And so, did you necessarily think of a tattoo studio as a place where you can see art? Well, 111 Tattoo Studio participates in First Thursday every month. They want people to come in and see what they have on view as well. But if you haven't gone in lately, you might not have been aware that they too are part of this ecosystem. So, performing arts and venues, this is massive too, because you think about all the schools that are also presenting performing arts and all the families that are supporting their students. I had a great conversation with Chuck Reynolds, who is the superintendent of Muncie Community Schools, to just say, I was doing one of these community presentations and someone pointed out the omission on my list that I hadn't included all the schools. Like many times that's the first introduction to the performing arts for so many different people. And then this is just a smattering of all the performing arts groups. I doubt very much it's everyone, but this also gives you a picture. Look how many, for instance, are on the right-hand side that are all Ball State for the College of Fine Arts. That's a huge number of performances that are going on a regular basis that add to the vibrancy of our community, and probably part of the reason Ball State collectively anyway, that Ball State, or rather Delaware County, scores so high on that vibrancy index. There's a lot of public dollars that are also invested. And then creative cultural spaces, places you wouldn't necessarily think is a creative space, but where there's a mural, where there is one of the Garfields on the Garfield trait. You could argue that as a creative space. They're what sort of inject the kind of creative conversation, the whimsy, the kind of breadcrumbing that I describe as points of interest that we want to see throughout our community to demonstrate to residents and to visitors that we are a creative community on top of being Muncie, Indiana, or Delaware County, Indiana. So with that, I've done my job. I have set the stage, ready for Ty, and before I introduce him, I want to tell you how instrumental it was to attend the Indiana Creative Economy Summit, which Counter Magazine does every year. And they are doing this on a basis of including folks like us in the room, but also bankers, economic development folks, state economic impact folks, the whole 9 yards, because we're all part of that ecosystem of trying to improve our community through arts and culture, with that economic growth, sustainable community, and health and wellness lens especially. So I was thrilled that we could meet and then introduce him to Nate Armin to be able to, excuse me, why did I say how, to be able to invite him to this first Friday lunch and talk, because the project that Ty is doing is something that makes data more understandable, more accessible, and I think is something that if we know about it, we can tap into it for our own mission-based needs for businesses. So to tell you a little bit about him, he is the founder of Wesley's Project, a data platform that helps communities explore and share the story of their creative economy. He's going to guide us through Delaware County's creative industries, employment, wages, and growth trends, showing how shared data can support arts advocacy, funding conversations, planning efforts, and cross-sector collaboration. He's also a Holt State graduate, so please welcome back Ty Stratton to Let's Say.
Thank you. So to start off, first of all, yes, I am a Ball State alum. I graduated in the bachelor program in 2020. And while I was there, I think it was about I worked with data now, so you can understand my junior year, I was feeling like a little bit burnt out. I felt like sewing was just like a little bit, I could just get frustrated with sewing. And so it was like, I did an academic journal on behalf of Ball State with Dr. Psyche. And we were restoring like World War II clothing. And I was like really concerned about like the qualitative aspects of it. And already like back then, quantitative things. So I was like trying to assign a score to the clothing to see how well we like reconstructed the clothing. And then after that, I was just like, I graduated from Ball State, and I was like, no, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go into IT. Because like COVID was happening at that time, and it was really difficult to find a job. So I transitioned into IT, and then I went back for my computer science degree at Abitech. And when I was doing that, I needed some kind of project to like sink my teeth into. And I didn't necessarily know I loved data at that time, but I did I created like this project for Wesley's project that was like a Nike shoe scraper. So it would go to Nike's website and try to pull all of the prices for the Nike shoes. And then I was trying to see like, were they like changing the prices without like me knowing? I just wanted to know if I was getting a good deal. And so like I tracked it for like 2 months and I was like, I can see you changing your price, but no one thinks you're changing your price. And so I talked with Polina Pattern, which is a nonprofit in Indianapolis. They really care about the creatives and the artists. And I said, do you guys have any like data pipelines or any underused data that's not being used right now? And she was like, well, California has a dashboard where they show on a by-county basis what's going on in their creative economy. And I was like, let me see if I can like come up with something like that, because at that time I was a student and I wanted something in my portfolio. And Wesley's project came about, so I worked very hard over like 3 months, and the entire idea of it is I wanted to get educators, grant writers, creatives all on the same page, so when we're trying to secure funding from the IEDC or READY, with the Old West End Neighborhood Project, that all lives in one place, and we can use that data to either inform where we're going, or to look back and use like this project as like a capsule that someone can look back at and say, well, it worked for once, where else can it work, right? So this is, without further ado, my map. Okay, so when you first get to the website, this is an interactive map. Oh man, I wish I had a mouse. So the table that I decided to show at the Creative Summit for patterns was county business patterns. So when I hit county business patterns, what it's doing is it's loading. It's an interactive map, so you can look at any county within Indiana or the United States. You can even select a different state, and you can kind of understand what's happening. So if I click on Delaware County, I can see up here at the top left, you can see industries, businesses, the workforce, right, and also what your largest creative industry is, which is software publishers in 2023. But you can drill down even further than that. It's not just, these are just creative industries and base codes that I've pulled, but if I just wanted to look at like how barbershops are doing in Delaware County, I can. So,
Hi, do you want a mouse?
that would be so cool, thanks. Yeah, that would be great. A mouse pad is awesome, thank you. So I'll get to why there's no data available for Delaware County pretty soon. Let's see if I can find something that Delaware County does enjoy sharing with people. Caterers, sure. So if I click Delaware County, I can look at the total employee earnings for just caterers in Delaware County, right? And I'm also looking at a heat map right now, so you can see like all the money for this industry is concentrated in Marion County right now. Or I can just look at like complaints, and I can see up here in Elkhart, it looks like they have 7.1 million. I also have another map type for this, which is workforce growth, so you can see how much the workforce is growing for caterers in Delaware County, right? So it looks like, wow, they had a great year from 2017 to 2023 because the total percent growth is not right. That's just not a problem. But from 0 to 18, that's 100% growth. So if I go over here, I can take a look at another map type. So instead of just looking county by county, I can also look region to region. So the IEDC has a ready map, right? And they say like, this is central Indiana, this is west central Indiana, this is east central. So all those aggregated stats that I was showing you earlier can, roll up to a map-based approach as well. As soon as it loads, what do you guys think about the loading symbol that I had in his computer now? The loading symbol. I don't know, I just feel like he's bouncing at the bottom, bouncing at the top. He's excited. He's there.
It is a site that feels very personable, and it's little touches like this.
Oh, thank you so much. So I grabbed the data, I put it onto the map. All of these data providers are available right now. We have 9 different data sets available right now. But one of the coolest things that you can do is I wanted a report, not just the aggregate sets that I was showing you earlier about what's happening with creative industries in Delaware County. I can add that to my queue over here, and I can download an advanced report of it, and it will send you a PDF directly to your computer. And these are what the reports look like. So we were just on county business patterns right here, and it's just a 10-page report of all these amazing things that are happening on behalf of Delaware County, right? So this one looks like I have a template of Marion County going, but you can see this is Marion County, just breweries on the second down. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Okay. It's a little too big. But if you scroll down, you can see annual payroll rankings by county. You can see the top industries by total employee earnings. You can see growth trends over time for your county. And it just like keeps going and going and going. And so just by going, I wanted to look at caterers in Delaware County. I got like a full-blown report. This is great for small business owners that might want to know where they should set up shop. Why maybe it should be Delaware County, because maybe you guys are supporting a specific industry more than other ones. But we have reports for so many different kinds of data sets. So this is just for migration patterns. So if I go back, this one I know for sure is going to take a while to load, but while it loads, I'll talk about it for just a bit, because Muncie is one of the commuting zones on here. So here in a second, what you're going to see is you're going to see commuting zones from Muncie, Indiana to every other place in Indiana and outside of Indiana. So they took a cohort from 1984 to 1992, and they found out where they moved from 2010 to 2018 to see, is Muncie growing? Where, like, who's taking our talent other places? Where does it live? So you can see the net migration over here is you guys lost over 2,000 people, and this is where they're going to. This is people coming from, and then you can look at top destinations right here to see where they're going to. And there are just thousands of different reports that, because it's so modular and because you're looking at commuting zones by county, you can even create your own custom map with some of these tools. So earlier I showed you guys that I was looking at a map of IEDC, right? But if I wanted to make my own map, I can. So if I just want, like, let's just say I want to know how Delaware County, Blackford County, and Grant County were, we'll just name this first Friday. Test. Can I save that? I'm not logged in right now. I need to log in real quick. That's so fun. That's so good. Yes, it's me. So if I wanted to create a map, I can do that. So I can click. I'll name this first Friday. Test. Save it. Then I can save like another region. Name this test. Save it. And then I can save a map onto my account, right? And so now, here, maps, select map. Now there's a first Friday, so I'm just comparing stats from county to county, or region to region instead of county to county. Right? So there are so many different data sets that I have available on my site. We just got done adding University of Wisconsin Population Health Institute, which has clinical care, health behaviors, health outcomes, physical environments. So I just looked at these are kind of fun. I think these ones are the most fun ones. Because most of these are for like organizations to make funding decisions, but there's some great ones in here. So let me look at physical environment. You can see like what's happening with air pollution in Indiana. And you can get like a heat map of air pollution. Right? Access to parks. You can see how Delaware County is compared to every single other county in Indiana, and it just keeps going. Severe housing problems. I mean, we're talking about housing today, so like, how do we stack up compared to other counties? And the list keeps growing and growing and growing. We have so many metrics on the site, and you might be thinking to yourself, like, wow, if I was on that site, that's like a lot of. If you've ever been to a data website, especially like the U.S. Census Bureau, there's so many tables to like choose from. It's like, it's kind of overwhelming. And so can you imagine a world where I'm building this project to be, once I have like 20 data sets or so, someone's going to be able to get onto my project and with human language just type out I'm from Wesley, Indiana, and I'm a caterer, and I kind of want to know about housing too, and blah, 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 blah. And it's going to be able to build you a report with all of the data sets that I have, instead of just like you have to go find it yourself, right? And so I think something that I really want to focus on though, like this is great now because these are all publicly available data sets that I found, is that you guys have been doing such great work with the Old West neighborhood. I talked to Nate and I talked to Tanya about it, and Nate sent me like basically context about the project, and as I was looking through, and I talked to Zach, I was seeing like all this stuff that urban planning students are doing, and I was like looking at these PDFs, and I scrolled instantly to the quantitative analysis. I was like, where are the graphs at? I want to see like a map, and I want to see what's going on. I think that all of this stuff deserves a home, like a place to go, because if we can do it in like Muncie, Indiana, and we can get the whole West End neighborhood like revitalized, and we can be having these collaborative meetings and everything like that. This doesn't have to be like the only time you guys have an at-bat for funding for your community and neighborhood. You can take this, and then the next time you have to go in front of the IDDC and ready, it lives in one area, and you can just say, hey, look at what we did, look at what we did for our communities, look at what we accomplished. And you guys have put in like such amazing work. I mean, I'm looking at like 2 different studios worth of data right now. But I think it deserves like a home, and also I think that the Muncie community would like I guess like transparency about like what's happening, what's happening with the project, where do I fit into that, and so that's Wesley's project, and I just think that I think that there are a lot of ways that we can. It's supposed to be like an umbrella, like a hub where everything is allowed to coexist. And intersect as well. I think everybody has data about this and data about that and data over here, and it's like if we could all just get together, I feel like Indiana would just grow. And so I built this thing, and it's kind of like a love letter back to Indy, because Indy's taken such good care of me, whether it was Ball State or whether it was my internship programs. And so I'm hoping that this can be of benefit to Muncie neighborhoods and the Muncie community.
Yeah, this is so wonderful. Not a question. But I do have a question about the sources that you use. So it sounds like you use the Census Bureau.
Yep.
And what other sources are you using to aggregate your data?
Sure. Yeah. So these are all the data providers off to the side. So I have U.S. Census Bureau right here off to the side. I also have State of Indiana. We have high school graduate outcomes, right? So I click on high school graduate outcomes. I can look at just Delaware County, and I can see how high school students are doing in Delaware County post-grad. So I can click their graduation year, and then I can say how many years after graduation, and it's comparing their wages after that time, right? Along with schools. And it's like, we have so many different data sets that can be manipulated and changed. We have opportunity insights. That was the migration patterns that I was showing you guys. This is my favorite one, because I think one of the most difficult parts about this project is finding good data. And the Population Health Institute just kind of did it for me. They just gathered everything up and said, this is where we found it. And so we have clinical variable behaviors. If you have any questions about where the data lives or where I got it from, you can look at any of these reports, and I did cite my sources. So data sources right here on page 4, and that's for every single report. So, I know I have some data people. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
What'd you build this on?
So I built this using Python, JavaScript, CSS, all the really fun, annoying programming languages. I can keep listing them. I used something called Puppeteer for the data downloads. So that's why I didn't want my reports to look like they came out of a high school textbook. I wanted it to look like engaging, accessible. And so it's just kind of mirroring what it's seeing in the browser, and it's downloading it. This is formation statistics, but if I add it to the report view, around it, it'll pop up on my browser so you can, I guess, kind of see it at scale. But I've been working on this project for the past year and a half now, and it started off, I wanted it just for, it was built on Pattern's behalf, and then I think we have a really great community of people in Indiana that support local artists because I brought this to Pattern, and they were like, no, we want you to keep the IP, we just want you to run with it and do your thing, and we'll support you in any way, shape, or form, right? And I think that's astounding. I think futures are like indies just a little genuine people, I think. But, so, yeah, did that answer your question? I kind of went off track a little bit. I think what I'm trying to go for is I'm trying to gather local information to put into this tool. Because once local information is in here, then I mean, you can literally do just about like anything. I can map it, and I can just pull up Delaware County, and I can just look at like a street, and I can look at houses on that street, and I can have a heat map for just that. So, yeah. Any other questions?
I was interested in the migration question because there are so many conversations about how do we keep local young people in our counties or giving back to our communities or how do we get them to return. And the thing I wondered is because they're all Indiana locations, is there also comparative data for other states, other cities to show how many folks are going to Denver or LA or wherever?
So right now, it's Indiana based for this data set, but it will show you if they were in Indiana where they were going to, if that makes sense. So I'll pull up the data right now.
So is this moving or commuting?
Both. So it depends on what page we're looking at. But so this is Opportunity Insights, and this is top origins and top destinations. So this is where people are going to and where people are coming from Muncie. And then there are retention rates by commuting zone. So where are people like staying basically? So it looks like Muncie has a 46.6% retention rate when it comes to other commuting zones that are in Indiana. And then there are migration patterns by income quartile. There are migration patterns by race. I think one of my favorite things on here is brain drain to see where you guys are losing people. So it looks like Muncie is losing the most to Nashville, actually. Surprise! What are you guys laughing over here? What's going on? That like this no what's happening. Yeah, so you like this is just for Muncie, but like my tool has access to like every single county, and then I was showing you guys that you can look at different states. So if I look at it's for every single state, most data sets. Opportunity Insights is a little bit different because it's such dense data that if I added it to my website would probably blow up because it's just too much happening all at once. But yeah, there was a question back here.
Why is it called Wesley?
That's my middle name, and when I was 7, yeah, super original. But when I was in college, I used to sell clothes. Thus, the fashion grade is just screen print. And then I was like, I'm just making my brain. I'm not redoing that. So I stayed with all the colors and all the themes and the logo.
I don't want to dominate, but since I see this subscribe button at the top, I'm wondering, does it cost to use the site, or what are the benefits of subscribing?
Absolutely. Yeah, so if you're on my site right now, if you're just like in the tool, like blah, 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 just looking around counties, you're just looking at different kinds of heat maps or grid maps, that doesn't cost any money. You can go to Wesley's project right now and do these things. If you do download a report, I think your first report is free. And then after that, this is my subscription tier. So $5 to me. So sometimes you just need like a couple reports and then you just want to get out of there. So it's $5, you get 5 downloads per month. And then for people that are like small business development communities that might be sitting across the table from someone every single day where they're trying to help them, it's like I need to download a report like every single day, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5. I have points, but usually this does the case for most use cases that people need it for. But if you're on Wesley's project right now, all you have to do to download a report is log in, but you can look at it on your phone too. It's mobile friendly. Any other questions?
So,
Yeah.
what about you?
Yes, about the net migration, is it like a survey, because is the Union National Tennessee or Nashville, Indiana?
Oh, let's take a look. Did you
Because
guys
like
see
you
it?
had put, like, it doesn't say, like, since we have a town in Nashville and Indiana.
Yeah, 100%. Let me take a look. I'm going to assume that that's Nashville, Tennessee, but that is a really great point, and now I'm about to add the state into destination, so thank you for finding that. What was your other question?
Question about are you using, so with all your sources, have you built into like your constant running APIs, or are you running with a static data set that you integrate into your table?
So that's a good question. When I first started this project, I was using an API for kind of usage patterns to pull in all that data, and then I'm a business intelligence analyst now, so I guess my skill set kind of changed where like I know a little bit more about data, so I was like, I'm just going to download this giant CSV and pull.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to put it in my own database. So I'm hosting a database right now with all this information in it, and I have pipelines so that when the U.S. Census Bureau has like new data that comes out, I'm automatically pulling that into my project, if that makes sense. Oh yeah, this is something in beta, so if it breaks, you guys have to be kind. So I have an analyze with AI option. So I had a lot of people come to me after the Creative Summit and they're like, okay, I have all this data and this is nice and stuff, but I still want something to like explain to me what I'm seeing, right? And so I'm trying to make the most engaging and accessible tool possible. So I can pull up this view, and sometimes people like that want to pass something off to government or maybe the IEDC. I've been mentioning them a lot. They'll look at this page and they'll be like, I want it to sound like I'm giving it to government. And when you give it to government, it's like very brass tacks, cold language. You're not adding any filler. You're not trying to tell a story. And so if I just wanted to look at just this page, analyze it. It's not breaking, that's good. But right now what it's doing is it's taking everything from my PDF page and it's also going to my database and looking at all these queries that I'm giving it, and it comes up with like key findings, data patterns that don't exist on this page. It is not hallucinating, this is not ChatGPT. This goes directly to my database and gets all the data and then pulls it in. So right here it says Marion County's share of state payroll is substantially exceeds its share of employment, indicating higher average compensation, blah, 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 blah. But if you wanted to like hand this off to somebody, it's like the pipeline from just knowing what you want, the report exists, and then you can analyze the pages that you need. It's pretty incredible. So then I scroll to this page. I'm obviously not going to let you analyze the table of contents. Please do not do that. But you can analyze any of these pages. And so what ends up happening is I have results for these pages, but since I'm logged in, I can save this report. I got scared for a second. And then we can download. And so what ends up happening when you download is it puts that page of analysis directly after that first page, just so you have access to it. And there it is. So that is another feature that I have. And in the future, like I said, I want it to be, when you come to the website, if you don't want to look through all these data sets, that's so fine and cool because there's a lot in there. I think you should be able to just use human language and an agent should be able to go through every single data set that I have with SQL queries and say like, oh, this one is applicable to them, this one is not. I'm going to add this page, I'm not going to add this one. And in the future, you can imagine you could have like 50 pages of like 100 pages of just stuff just about housing in Muncie if you wanted it, or where people are going in Muncie. So
have the information related to the arts vibrancy index for our counties?
Not long. So I've built this to be a very scalable project. So I think last year when I first got into building this, I just had county business patterns. It was like my baby. I cared a lot about it. And then I was like, I'm going to be adding more data sets. So this thing needs to be scalable. I need to be able to add things quickly. And so if I have data right now, like my turnaround for getting it back because of how I built this tool is like very, very quick. It probably takes me like 2 weeks to a month. So yeah.
A lot of it's county driven. Can you drill down to sub-county GIS spaces like
I can.
census tract, neighborhood, like other?
No one's asked, but yeah, I can. Do you want me to?
No, it's fine.
This seems like an amazing tool, but I'm curious if you successfully had somebody leverage this data towards.
Yeah, so actually right now I'm working with Pennsylvania. There are 2 counties, Fayette and I believe Greene County, that they're looking at right now, and they wanted to use Wesley's project to build out a full-fledged report so that they can pass it off to people in their government and make good creative decisions about what's happening in their creative economy. I've also had this used in workshops before where people sit down and they are small business owners and they need good hard data to guide their decisions. So yes, great question. We're still early on, so I'm still looking for case studies. But I just think the more and more data sets that we get, I think people will start to understand how powerful the tool that this really can be. I mean, it's so customizable. You can really get anything that you're looking for out of it. Yeah.
You had said that you were looking to get data for even smaller districts, including network neighborhoods. Do you have any plans or ideas on how you'd like to go about getting that data?
Asking people. I think, so I was talking to Nate a little bit about this, but I think people, there are communities and organizations in Indianapolis because it's so competitive in Indianapolis that they're kind of close chested with their data. They're like, I don't want you to have my data. What are you doing? What are you trying to sell it? What are you doing? And so I think when I approached the Old West End project, specifically when I was looking at this data, I know that this data exists somewhere, and I believe that this story deserves to have a home somewhere that isn't just in a PDF document, because I think in the future we're going to have another opportunity maybe to revitalize somewhere else in Mochi, and this needs to be somewhere. People need to be able to see this. It shouldn't just exist here and then we have to like dust off the cobwebs in like 3 or 4 years and be like, it was in an email chain somewhere, and I can't remember, right? So, yeah. Hope that answers your question.
So if I'm a municipality or an organization who needs insights like this, geographically based, what are the advantages of using Wesley's project over as business analysts?
I think one of the biggest advantages that my tool has is the ability that you get like a full-fledged report like instantly, and it's like a little bit more like engaging and accessible. I really tried to make this tool like, I color coded my maps. I made the map interactive. You can zoom in and out of it. You can zoom in and out of it. You can reset the view. And so I think that they're like data people, like me or maybe the folks sitting over there at that table, like when I see like data from like that source, I understand it for the most part, but I'm trying to make it as accessible as possible for the people that like see this data, because not everybody is like a data person. So when I build out my reports, I'm trying to like, if I take a look at U.S. census, sometimes I add these like, just in case like you were curious about what this means, like I add like a little note at the bottom, or I add more details at the bottom to tell you exactly what that data means. It's especially relevant for like some of these reports where health data, you guys can probably barely see, you can't read that, but there's a definition of what every single data piece in here looks like. So,
Tyson, can you go back to the subscribe?
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just wondering about, like you talked about, somebody wants something, you'll put it in there. I mean, so if somebody subscribes to this, maybe it's the pro, are you providing technical support? Like, okay, once they subscribe, now I have a relationship with them. We're talking, we say, Ty, we really need some information on this neighborhood. These are all the data sets. I mean, is that the kind of relationship?
Yeah, so that would be like separate from this kind of subscription model. I'd probably talk to whatever organization would want something like that. But yeah, 100%. I have specifically for that Pennsylvania example I was talking to you about, that community needs specific things out of the map that my tool cannot do as of right now. And having conversations with them, I'm like, what are those things? What would you like to have added? And then we have a relationship where I'm working with them to add what they need to get the most out of it. So this is not like a stagnant thing that just like you, maybe someone was to give me their data, I put it on the map, and I say, good luck, like, have a good day. It's an ongoing relationship that I have with my clients.
Okay.
I have a question, just see how like micro this gets, I guess. So like, I write a grant every year, and it asks like for demographics in like the specific neighborhood that I'm working in. And then, as much as I love going to the census, I'm not a data person. I like the opposite. And so going through that is like why I put the grant off every year, like the night before it's due. Does that go down to like that small, like
to neighborhoods?
Yeah, like if it's like, because it's like off of the census technically, like I can always go in there and then I'm like, this is like an area that I'm looking for.
That's a really great question, and I think it's the reason why I'm trying to have conversations like these, because what you're asking for can exist, and it should exist, and I can add it to the map. It's just about understanding the need of why people might need that. Maybe it might be applicable to someone else, or it might just be applicable to you, and that's so fine as well. It's just about having a conversation with me about where the data lives. You know, if I go to it's so funny, my form, I have a contact form, but you can't put in your name or email right now. So please be very explicit who you are. But just contact me if there's a data set that you want added to the map, and I can 100% add it, yes. I've been having these conversations over and over and over with people in government, with the IAC downtown, and they said like, how fast can this happen? And I spent one night putting all 5 of these data sets like in, because like I wanted them to know how fast you can just get it in there. It's just about asking and having the data available. Any other questions?
I was going to ask one more question. And Kim kind of was an example of that. I just want to know, is there anybody else kind of like thinking from your profession or your organization of how this could be used, things that are immediately popping up in your head? Or is it mostly need to be, okay, potentially this could work, but there's going to have to be some working through the data, there's going to have to be some back and forth so that it shows what I would be usable. Thinking maybe what Ford Indiana is doing right now, or Community Foundation, I think, talking about arts and planning and just wondering to know if anybody's thinking that way immediately, or there's some steps that need to occur.
Thanks, Nate. I'm Ford Indiana Regional Economic Development Organization, so we manage the state's ready programs for East Central, and so as the arts and culture is getting ready to launch, that was something I was keeping in my brain, how we can best provide this as a resource to projects that are going to be applying here in PCI. That's a little bit more impactful than just like sharing a link to the site. When you have conversations with other ready regions,
I will be a part of, I think that they have their first meeting next Monday. I will be talking to each.
Oh, a webinar?
Are you going to be there?
Yeah, I just did a webinar.
Yeah, on Monday.
Okay, perfect.
I
Yes.
believe I will be there, and so I'll be having. I'm hoping to share this tool with them so they can see, what's happening. And I mean, they were at the Creative Summit, and they all came up and shared their presentations about what was happening in their regions. And from that conversation, I said, "Oh, would it be so cool if you could visualize your region on the map?" And then I built this up, and it's taking so long to load. Because I wanted to show you East Central, but the map is available. I think my laptop might be slow, but this is my laptop. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. I just think that's a great tool for projects and type things to really help amplify the narrative.
Yeah, 100%. And if there are some of you in the audience that are like, yeah, I have data, I just don't know how it would be used on the map, please contact me, because you're not the only person that feels that way. I've added, for instance, migration patterns. Those are based off of commuting zones, and someone was like, "Oh, but it's not like a nice little county thing that you had going on." Well, there is a way that you can map commuting zones to cities, so it's just a matter of having conversations with me.
Was your question? Do we have ideas?
Yeah, anybody else thinking of
Yeah.
immediate application?
Well, and I was thinking, of course, I have an amazing realtor here to my right that I usually call with these questions. So, but what are actual homes selling for? I know Zillow has a great tool, and it's always accurate and ethical what they've listed as their estimate. But what are actual homes selling for? Down to in the neighborhood level, so we can see trends there. And the other thing is, who's buying them? Are they private residents? Are they folks buying them as an investment property, or is it a big hedge fund that's coming in and buying a bulk of them? That would be data that would be interesting.
Do you have access to that data, or do you know where it lives? I mean, I can just research.
I do not.
Oh, okay. It might.
Every single sales exposure that passes through the assessment office is completely available, and they aggregate that into parcel data set from Stats Indiana. I have that.
That's what's up.
Yeah, so you can totally add this for the past 10 years at least.
Yeah, so I can easily add that to the map.
Nice.
Yeah, so if you want to, get in contact with me, yeah, I can get it.
No, one question. It's kind of a tricky question.
Oh.
Do you find that people are asking you to diagnose or contextualize things that maybe, so longitudinal data, and say we're talking about migration, right? So, and it seems like Muncie, Delaware County is losing the workforce to other places. So do people often, will they say, well, what's causing that? Are they drawing relationships between certain factors or?
Yeah, that gets into the analysis component that I was talking about, and about how I think when people come to me, I think the biggest thing that's on their mind is how do I grow? How does Indiana grow, and where do I fit into the conversation, the story, and where does Delaware County or wherever I fit in? I think people do come to me to diagnose the issue, but when I was building out that AI analysis component, my hope is that it's looking at multiple different data sets that I have, and it's comparing, and it's going to be able to tell you based off of that recommendations for your area. So that's kind of where my mind was going when I was making the analysis. Good question. Yeah.
You have subscriptions, but you have contributors that maybe a county or a city or even a university, Ball State, might want to add their own data sets to, or would they just have to send you, here's all the data we have?
No, I would like to have that. I mean, I'm doing this, when I started this, I was literally just doing it as a love letter back to Indy. That's literally what it was. And then I reached out to Pattern with it, and I said, here you go. I was like, can you maybe shoot me $20 or something? Or because I didn't know any better. I was a young artist, and and they were kind enough to sponsor my project. So I was lucky enough to receive some sponsorship last year, but now going forward, it's like I'm trying to make those connections with Allstate, with the city of Muncie, with whoever wants their data to live somewhere. Because I know that you guys get these questions as much as I get these questions. It wouldn't be so cool to just have one spot where all of it lives. You know what I mean? And it's funny because I always ask where it lives, because that's the hardest question for me, because I know how to put things together, but it's like asking questions, asking where it's at, like that's very important, because sometimes people don't want to move away, but you said the monthly assessor office?
Yeah, it's wired
Right.
by law with stats and financials.
Sure.
One question before I
Go ahead. It's actually for you. This is your party. Is this something that you and Zach would find value in?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to lean into Zach. I mean, I think what Zach was just talking about, we spent the last 8 months doing kind of an analysis of the tax debt, kind of its impacts. And Zach's been, in the data sets that most people don't know exist, and actually figuring out how to like make them make sense. So it's something we're going to be sharing here soon. And hopefully with part of the kind of like the gist of it would be then, well, these are suggestions for potential reforms. How maybe this could be better, be done better. So yeah, I think, yeah, that's what basically, I think this conversation needs to happen between Ty and Zach. Maybe John, some other people on the land bank board that are live in this world. I was going to say that, I mean, our Old West End project, which y'all have heard, I think most of you all, the land bank with Eco Rehab, Passstone Corporation, and 10 Indiana, the Neighborhood Association, and the city, there's going to be about 30 plus homes built in one specific area. And land bank, one of our jobs is to, we talk about our work being like pre-development. Before we can ever really have a real tangible conversation about anything happening, there's got to be this work that's done prior. And that's data collection, that's actually going out and acquiring property and taking what are liabilities. There's a reason why they're just sitting there idle, because they're liabilities. So the whole process physically and legally to turn those into developable assets. Our approach is very much trying to get everybody to the table, having kind of like a base layer of information so that everybody can look together and say, this is where we think it makes sense for the land bank as the entity that's working to get property to start investing resources. With the Old West End, now we've kind of gotten to a place where, to a degree, the land bank has completed its work for this project. Now it's on Eco Rehab, now it's on Passstone, now it's on 10 Indiana, to like make those houses start to come up, the developers that are going to be involved. But what we're trying to do now is get ahead of that. We feel like, okay, wow, we're sitting on this catalyst right here in this area that's adjacent to downtown. We've got some massive support from the Ball Wells Foundation, and so we're projecting into the future, and we're thinking about not just housing development, but also thinking about, okay, you're going to get 30 some families located in this area, homeowners. Hopefully some are already in the neighborhood. They're going to transition into homeownership. Maybe there's going to be some folks coming in from the outside. There's just going to be a whole batch of people that are going to be very interested in business and quality of life and art spaces. And so whether it's us just again trying to set the table and start to try to have these conversations and then give it to the experts, but that's what we're thinking about. So I think totally relevant. How it all fits, I'm not 100% sure. One of the things I was going to ask is, can you go back in time and say, this is what it was in 2018?
Yeah. 100%. On the tool, we pull up kind of business patterns. If I were to go to workforce growth, you can see at the bottom here how growth year range that I can pick like go 2019 to 2023, I can look at businesses instead of workforce, and that's, you know, with all those small little nuances that I was talking about before, so you can go back.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, I think, yeah, this is great. Ty, thank you